Hey, folks, you're listening to the Jobs Podcast, and I'm your host, Tim Hendricks. Your time is valuable. I'm not going to waste it. Let's get right to the interview. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing today?
Tim, I could not be better.
Well, folks, we got a treat today. We got ourselves a bona fide fall guy on the show today, a real live stunt man that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of decades now. We're getting old, Jeremy. But
I know. I don't feel old. I do not feel old.
you're as old as you feel up between the ears, I think is the phrase, or I just butchered it, but you know what I mean. So,
Something like
yeah,
that. I guess you're only as old as you feel. So yes,
right,
and I am. I guess. I guess it's better than as old as you act,
right.
because my wife would say that I'd probably in the 7 to 8 year old range.
Right. Well, you got to stay young at heart. So,
I try. I try.
well, this is going to be interesting, Jeremy. We're going to dive into your career. I don't know if is the proper term still stuntman, or I know you're a coordinator. You do all kinds of things, but
Ooh. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes. You can say both. You can say both for now.
okay. Well, let's start with where Jeremy was born, and just give us a little bit of a snapshot about your upbringing and just kind of your family, and we'll just go from there.
It was a cold, dark night in Farmington Hills, Michigan, back in 1991.
Right.
And yeah, I was born in Michigan. We stayed there for a couple of years. I don't remember it. And then we moved to San Diego. And I lived there most of my life. There was a brief excursion out to the booming metropolis of Elk Falls, Kansas.
Hmm.
Population when we moved in became 125 people. And then we were there for a little while in my elementary school. And then I moved back to San Diego. And I went to finished high school in San Diego. Then I went to college in San Diego with, I don't know if you remember, but you went there as well.
Yeah.
And then after college, kind of bounced around. I did some seasonal jobs, and I spent during college and after college, I spent summers in Northern California, some kind of outside of Sacramento, which is, if you fold California into thirds, that's in Central California, everybody. And then a couple of summers, 3 summers in Northern California, true Northern California by Oregon. And I love that. And then after that, I chased a girl to Colorado and ended up, I loved it out there. And then I came back to San Diego I went out there for winter, came back to San Diego for a year. And then I decided that I didn't want to work at a newspaper anymore, even though that was my major, and I didn't mind it, but I didn't want to do it anymore. So I went back out to Colorado to do another seasonal season, but this time the summer's out there. And then I decided that I didn't want to. If I continued along that path, I would end up living in the outfitter's parking lot in a Subaru with all the other 30-year-old washed up
Yeah.
dudes who don't take showers more than once a week.
Two
So
bad knees.
um, yeah, I wasn't 30 at the time, but I saw that as my future. So in my early mid 20s, I thought, what can I do with my life? And the director of the camp that I'd worked, it was a Christian camp in Northern California. I worked there 3 summers. Every summer during training, part of the things that he would say to people were, hey, if you love to do something, do it well enough, and someone will, eventually someone will pay you to do it. So I literally in Colorado, I literally made a list of everything that that I enjoyed, that I thought was cool, and it included things like snowboarding and rock climbing and hockey and motorcycles and cars and rollerblading, which is still up there at the top of my list. So anyway, I made a list. I even put stuff along the lines of I like to be outside. I put down things that I didn't like. So, and I looked at my list and I thought, what could I do that I could either do as a vocation, or that would allow me the income and the flexibility to do it. And somehow, I don't even know how, but I came up with stunts. So I had a friend who I met in college who ended up transferring out of our school and went to another school in LA for film school. And he and I had been friends for a long time. And I never really talked about work, but I called him up, and I moved from Colorado and then moved to LA and ended up crashing on his couch for a couple of months. and then crashed on someone else's couch for a little bit, then got a place with some friends, and da 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 da. I figured I'd give it a year, and I am still trying to figure it out, but so far so good.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the Reader's Digest condensed version, or
Right.
the Cliff's Notes, if you will, of
What
how I got where I'm at.
what was your first, I guess, um, did you take some training classes about how to jump off of a building or how to race a car? Or what was your first like legitimate real step into doing some kind of stunt work?
Good question. So, I mean, I'd had a history of doing things I thought were fun. So I'd done stuff that, looking back, helped prepare me for it, but they weren't along the lines of I'm going to do this because I want to do stunts.
Yeah.
But I talked to my mom about it, and when I moved back from Colorado, I let me amend my earlier statement. I didn't go directly to LA. I went home for a little bit in San Diego. Not very long. It was very short. But I told my mom about it. My mom was very supportive. I mean, she wasn't a cheerleader of it necessarily, but she certainly didn't say don't do it. And I remember one day I came home and she said, "Hey, I saw this on the news," and this was back before the internet, so you couldn't just Google anything about anything.
Mm.
And so when she saw a special on the local news in San Diego about a guy, a stunt guy who lived in San Diego, she got his name and number and wrote it down on a little scratch piece of paper and gave it to me. So I called this guy up. His name was Braden Hawk. I mean, talk about a cool name.
Shoot, yeah.
That's Dude. I mean, okay, if I Tim, I want you to hire a stunt guy. You got two options. You got Jeremy Fry, and you got Braden Hawk.
I'm going
I mean,
with the
come on.
Hawkman. Yeah.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. Good. That's the right answer.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I was up against it from the beginning. But anyway, I called up Braden, and of course, he was more than willing to help me out if I just gave him some money.
Right.
So he told me that he was going to be doing a fire burn class. I had no idea, but that sounded amazing. So I went down wherever he lived. I don't remember, to his apartment, and I remember he pulled out. He had these pads, and I'd never seen pads like that. And one of them, we call them a gator back. They kind of come from motorcycle road racing,
Mhm.
but they're basically a plate that you put on your back, and it kind of straps over. And he had this gator back that I'd never seen. He told me it was a pad for your back, and it was all scratched up. And I said, "How? What happened?" Because I've used the pads because I've worn pads for skateboarding and rollerblading and whatnot, and
Mhm.
they get a little scratched up. But this thing was just gnarly. And I said, "Wow, what happened?" He's like, "Oh, we did this show. I got dragged behind a car. I thought, oh my gosh, I felt like I was in the presence of a celebrity." So I gave him my $100, and we did some fire burns with some other people. I wish, man, I knew who else was there. If they were working people, if my path ever crossed theirs
Mhm.
since then, I have no idea. But so that was the very first thing that I ever did that was kind of getting me on my way. Now that being said, I'll backtrack. When I was in Colorado, in the summer that I decided to move to LA, I was a whitewater guide, and I'd done that for a bunch of summers in Northern Cal. So I was doing it in Colorado, and I loved it. I still miss it.
Mhm.
The rivers are just such a fun place to be.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, when I made the decision to go to LA to do stunts, I made the conscious decision to also talk to the guests in my boat if it ever came up, because you hit a lot of rapids, but there's also some still water and some paddling time. There's some You get some good discussions going, and you talk about things. So anyway, I people would say, "Oh, what are you going to do after the summer?" And I would tell them I'm going to go to LA, and I would say that hoping that someone might have some kind of connection, because I had no clue what I was going to do at that point. I just knew I wanted to go to LA. I wanted to do stunts, and I figured I'd move to LA, but that's as far as my plan had gotten.
You
So
were just networking.
I was networking before that word was invented, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I talked to a lady again. I regret not taking better notes. My memory, I can't do anything about. It's not the
Mhm.
best, but I wish I would have had better notes. I would have kept, because I know I wrote it down. But this lady said that she knew someone, and his name was Scott Rogers, and she gave me his number. And so I called this guy up. She gave me another number two, and I called them, and they never ever called me back. But Scott Rogers did. And it turns out, looking back on it, Scott Rogers is probably, there's no one any smarter in the stunt world than Scott. He's very established. He's very successful, and he's become a very good friend since then. But I had his number, and he ended up getting me my first job. Um, it's jumping ahead a little bit. I mean, I won't belabor. I won't make this too. I'll try not to drag this out too much. But
It's fine.
when I did decide to move to LA, my mom knew a lady somehow. I think through church or something like that, who knew someone in LA who owned a studio, a very tiny studio, and so she got me a job. My mom talked to this lady, and this lady got me a job at this studio, and so I got a job at a little studio, and I thought I'd meet stunt people. I didn't meet a single stunt person, but it was film and video. They shot a lot of commercials, a lot of food commercials in particular, some music videos, some TV shows a little bit, and occasionally a feature would come through there. But it ended up being I worked there for I don't know, I want to say a handful of years, a bunch of years, and it was good. It taught me a lot about set etiquette. It taught me about people and networking and all that good stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was a bunch of little things. I was networking without knowing that I was doing it and trying to meet people, and I do believe it was divine. I do believe that God. I thank Him for for where I'm at because it's there is really no excuse for someone as with as little talent as myself to be where I'm at. So stuff really came together, and so now jumping way ahead. So now I've been in the business for about 25 years. I've been coordinating now for probably the last, I don't know, 8 or so. Some people start coordinating a lot earlier. I'm a slow learner, late bloomer, and I kind of waited. I didn't push it.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened, which was nice. I feel like by the time it happened, I still felt unprepared. But looking back on it, I'm glad I didn't start any earlier.
Right.
Not because I couldn't have done it. I just you start coordinating too early, and I think you miss out on a good period of time when you can learn a lot as a performer.
Yeah.
So I was a performer for a long time, and then coordinating, and then fairly recently, I'm starting to make the not really a transition, but I'm kind of branching out into official directing. I got in the DGA, so I'm doing some second unit stuff here and there, and I really like second unit. I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit, but
Yeah.
what that is. But anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at now. I still perform. I'll still get behind the wheel. I do a lot of car stuff. Just as an FYI, I started out hitting the ground and whatnot.
Yeah.
Vehicle work, car work in particular, is kind of what everyone wants to do, and I kind of stumbled into it. Not completely blindly, but I've always been into cars and love cars, and so when I moved to LA, that was I kind of gravitated towards the cars, and then met the right people. Again, very very blessed to have been introduced to the right people, and yeah, so I still drive, I coordinate a lot now, and direct when I can.
Now, be honest. When you rent a rental car, do you drive it like a bat out of Hades, or do you drive it like a stunt car?
Or am I driving like a little old lady? Yes. The answer
Right.
is C.
According to the insurance documentation, yes, we follow all of it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yes,
Right.
and dude, I'm such a I'm so straight laced, dude. I'm so boring. I'm so boring. It's
Well.
it's shameful, man. In fact, I was on this show, and they used to, when you go on location, they used to drive you around in a van. If you need to go to set, there'd be a van to pick you up at the hotel, take you to set, and then take you back to the hotel at the end of the night. And now it's pretty much exclusively they give you a rental car, and you just get yourself wherever you need to go.
Okay.
So, but there was kind of a transition period when they would maybe they give the stunt team one car, and so I was on this show, and I had the car, and I had to drive. We were all piling in all the in the cars to get to work. And I remember on the way home, we were in the kind of the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, and I'm driving. And I got a car full of 3 or maybe even 4 other stunt guys, and they're like, Jeremy, you probably just like you said, you probably just completely wreck your every rental car you get. And I told them the same thing I told you, which is no. I like, and they come on, you've never gotten Western with a rental car, like nope. And they started just hounding me about it. And so we're coming down this road, and we're going into town, and there's this long right hand turn curve into town. It's a real small town, and it's getting kind of dark. It's dusky. It's like golden hour, which is beautiful time. The
Hmm.
lights great, and the shadows are long. And we're coming into town, and I can kind of look down the road, and I don't see anyone. And so I'm cruising down. You should slow down for this turn. Well, I start kind of towing into it and go faster, and faster. Pretty soon they realize, oh wait, 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 whoa, what are you doing? Whoa, whoa, whoa! And I ripped the e-brake and I hung the back end out and I slid the car all the way around this corner full of the guys into town. And dude, they would have thought you would have thought that I just won like the Indy 500. Like, oh yeah, dude, you just drifted into town. It was a so yes,
Was that
yes,
before
I
Tokyo
have
Drift
one
or
time.
after?
Oh, this was it must have been after Tokyo
Okay,
Drift.
all right,
So yeah, yeah. So yes, I have hooned a car. I tend to not do it just because, like I
right,
said, I'm a goody goody.
right.
You
You
can't,
talked about
leopard can't change its spots.
your specialty being driving. Are there I mean, it seems like with stunts, there's just an endless number of specializations that you could rabbit holes you could go down as far as, well, this is the person that does this the best, firework or car work or jumping or falling or whatever. Do you find that people typically will gravitate towards one and that's all that they do, or does everybody have their favorites, but they all just kind of do all the stunts?
It used to be that you needed to know as many different disciplines as you possibly could, and it's still valuable.
Hmm.
But being an all arounder was the only way you'd really get work, especially if you were, 1X, doubling the lead. One, they give all the characters numbers. Your top build per guy or girl is one and two and three and four and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And then when you double someone, you get that number plus an X on the. So if you're doubling, I doubled Lou Temple on the show. He was probably number four, so I was 4X on that show. But if you're doubling the lead, you're 1X. So
Okay.
yeah, if you're 1X, you better know how to do a lot of stuff because there's a good chance that that guy or girl is going to be doing a lot of stuff. But more and more things have gotten more specialized. So you'll get a show, especially superhero shows, but a lot of shows, and the bigger ones more so. The ones that don't have the money less so. Um, but to a large degree, they hire specialists. So you have a show. Let's say your lead actor has to it opens up, he's a boxer and he's boxing, da 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 da, and then later on he's riding a horse, and then maybe he gets in a car chase, and then at the end of the movie he's doing a motorcycle thing. Well, usually it used to be you'd hire one guy and he'd do it all. Well, now the level of skill and whatnot has, and what the audience typically wants, the level is so high that you will bring in a boxer to double him for the boxing
Right.
scene, and then you'll bring in a I forgot even what the next thing this guy or imaginary character did, but you'll bring in specialists for all that stuff. You'll bring in a car guy, you'll bring in a motorcycle guy, you'll bring in a fight guy. Now there are some things that are pretty common. Fights are pretty common. You get a lot of fights.
Hmm.
Cars are fairly common. Motorcycles aren't very common. Fire's not very common. There are guys who specialize in those things, but they aren't able to kind of exclusively, just do that. There are some people who all they do is drive. It's still hard to get work if all you do is drive, but it can happen. And fights, you can definitely get work just as a fighter. But the problem with that is if you're doubling someone as a fighter, you're probably getting beat up, and if you're getting beat up, you can do that for a while and it feels great. But you start getting 35, 40, 45, you can still do it. And there are guys who do it, but it's a young man's sport at that point.
Yeah,
So
it's certainly hard on the body over time, I would imagine.
it is, and that's why again, I feel so fortunate to gotten into car work because there are guys I know who they are known as ground pounders. They will hit the ground. You ask them to do, and before you finish a sentence, they will have thrown themselves into the air and against whatever hard obstacle is nearby, and they'll just do it. And it's great. I mean, you want that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, when they get home, they're paying the price. I feel very fortunate that my body's in really good shape. So it's because I'm like veal. I didn't do anything for so long. I was such a nobody, nothing in high school and even college to a large extent. I didn't do anything, so I kind of preserved my little my little tender body. So it's lasted a lot longer than I think it
Some
most
people save
people's.
themselves for marriage. You saved yourself for your career. That's how that works, right?
Amen. That's right. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
I'm just curious. I know some of the movies that you've been in, but give us a quick snapshot of some of the highlights of your career as far as what the audience may have seen you do.
Okay, let's see. Um, I oh man. I mean, if you yeah, all right. Let's see. A fun one was Baby Driver. That was one of my highlights.
Yeah,
Ford versus Ferrari was a great one. I did the first three John Wicks. I did Drive. Um, I mean, these are movies that I had kind of a major role in. I Black Panther, Black Panther 2. I mean, and there's tons of other ones that either weren't as popular, like Madam Web. There's movies that not many people saw that were really good. That's a kind of a bummer. Um, well, what was it? It was The Last Stand. That was a great one that not many people saw.
yeah,
I mean, it's a popcorn movie. Don't get me wrong. It's not. It's not a tearjerker. It's not going to change the world, but
right.
it's kind of a fun movie, and
Sure.
we did some really cool driving stuff in it. Really cool driving stuff in that one. Um, so those, I mean, gosh, there's I don't know.
I thought
Yeah, there's
we're in the Pirates of the Caribbean. Didn't you do
several
some of
hundred.
those?
What's that?
The Pirates of the Caribbean. Didn't you do some of those?
Oh yeah, yeah. I did Pirates 2 and 3.
Okay.
Um, I didn't do tons of driving on those. Um, there's a joke. I didn't do any. There's no driving. It's pirates.
Yeah, I know. It
My
took me a second.
goodness.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, that's yeah. I obviously I had no problem with the ladies chasing me down, and
Right.
I have no game. I can't make a joke to save my life. So yeah, Pirates was fine. Pirates 2 and 3 was fun. Um, I did Master and Commander. That was one of my first jobs.
Mm,
Swordfish was my very first job. Um, yeah, there's it's funny. You can spend I can work I can spend a year and work on 4 films sometimes because I'll be on them from beginning to end, or I'll work on for long periods of time. And then there's other weeks I'll work on 4 shows in 1 week because I'll go in for a day on this one, a day on that one, a day on the other two. So
wow.
yeah, so some people, the number of shows you've worked on can sometimes be a little deceiving. Mine, I've got a pretty long list. There's people with way more, and
Yeah.
there's people with a lot less.
Right.
But there's people with less numbers of movies, but who have worked a lot longer than I have, just because they started coordinating earlier, and they every year they just do 3 shows. So it's a little deceiving. So I've worked on a lot. I've been very fortunate to work on a lot of stuff. Silicon Valley, I did that for a season.
Hmm. I remember, I've known that you've done this for a number of years, and it was always kind of cool. But then I went and I saw Baby Driver in the theater, and
Oh yeah,
I remember sitting there, and I'm like, "Holy cow, man! I know that guy. I don't know how I was legitimately impressed, and not that I wasn't
oh, thanks,
before,
Jim.
but I was like, golly, man, this guy's legit, and I know him." And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of cool. I've known him for decades now." So if
Yeah.
anybody listening has not seen Baby Driver, you have to see that just for the driving alone because it's epic. But
Well, I appreciate it. I tell you, dude, it's kind of nice to work on a movie that people actually watch and enjoy.
yeah,
Because Lord knows, I've done a lot of stuff that I was like, "Oh, this is gonna suck," and then no one ever watches it because it's lame.
yeah,
But yeah, those movies are really good. The Ford versus Ferrari was another one that people really enjoyed, and it's fun because we did some fun stuff on it, and then when people actually go and watch it, it's kind of nice.
right. What do you like most about your job? If someone just asked you on the street, what's the one thing about your job that you like the most? What would you say?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't know. I wouldn't say there's one thing. I will tell you this. I'll tell you this. In the 25 years of what I've been doing, I've probably maybe I think twice, maybe 3 or 4 times at the most, have I ever either gone to bed or woken up and not wanted to go to work.
Yeah, it's
So
hard to put a
that
price
that's
on
the part
that.
I like the most.
Right,
Which is kind of a non-answer. I like it. I like what I do. So it's not work. It's fun. It's great. I love it. It can be super challenging. Don't get me wrong.
hmm
And it definitely what I like the least about it is it definitely takes a toll on it's not an easy career, at least in the path that I've taken, on the family. And there's people with a lot whose path has been a lot a lot less conducive to a healthy family life.
Yeah.
But I am away a lot, and it can be challenging. I've got a rock star of a wife. Um, it's still not easy. So that's the part I like the least. But man, I guess the part I love about my job is that I love my job. I like that it varies. It's never the same thing. I like that I love the people I work with. We're all kind of cut, and especially you kind of not I don't know if you know this or not, but there's so many people in the industry. There's not a lot of work. There are working stunt people. There's tons of them,
Mhm.
but there's not tons of them. There's a handful. It's relatively speaking, it's a fairly small number, but there are a lot of people that you can pick from, and so you kind of tend to gravitate towards people who are kind of like minded.
Right.
And so I love that. I love the people I work with because a lot of us have the same sense of humor and the same approach to things and the same demeanor and so you're in the same kind of competitive spirit, but the people I hang out with, we're competitive, but it's all super friendly. It never gets, we can be very competitive, but at the same time, I'm trying the hardest I can to be the best. And then if I'm not, I'm equally excited and supportive of my friends who just beat me. I'm happier that they, even though I didn't want them to win, I'm happier that they won than if I had won. And it's mutual. There's a lot of a mutual admiration society kind of thing going on, and it's really cool. I just love that. I love that I get to do fun stuff, and
Yeah, it sounds
I get to
like it.
work with
You found your people
well, I get
and
to work with some of the best in the world.
yeah.
I my very first job, I get there, and dude, I'm telling you, I'm a nobody, and I still I believe that. And at that time, I was even more of a nobody. I showed up, and I'm talking to these other stunt people. I'm like, oh man, what do you do? How did what's your kind of background? And dude, to a T, they were all, yeah, I was NCAA champion. I was on the Olympic Taekwondo team. I was like all of them, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hope they don't ask me because I have. What am I going to say? I worked at the studios down the street, and I know what a C stand is.
Right.
I mean, I had nothing. I had um, no pedigree, no background, no nothing to
Well, you had drive.
justify me being there.
You had drive.
I didn't at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't really.
Well,
I kind of picked it up later, but
right.
I'm just saying that I get to work with people who, I just worked with. I got to hire this guy who was the bronze medalist in the not the recent games, but in the Olympics for the United States
Wow.
gymnastics team. And I've worked with other guys who have also competed in the Olympics, and but it's just really neat to work with them. And then you get to work with the actors too. And quite frankly, that's it was kind of interesting at first, and it's now just it is what it is. They're just people.
Sure.
But some of them are actually really cool. They're really, I some of them are. I don't know. It's like anyone. You meet some people, you get along with them, you hit it off, and other people, it's pleasant. But when you part ways, you probably will never see them again.
Right.
So it's the same with actors. They're just people. Some of them you kind of hit it off with, and others it's a good working relationship, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of cool too. It's very interesting to talk to celebrities about stuff.
Mhm.
About things happening in the world, about the exact same things that everyone else talks about. When you talk to your buddies at the fire station, like, oh, you got to check out this video, and someone's like, oh, I saw that. Same with whoever the movie star is. Like, oh, you got to see this video. And like, oh, that's funny. Oh, did you see this one?
Right.
And then they'll show me something they saw that was funny. It's. Then I kind of step back and go, man, these guys are making the movies that everyone's watching, and they're still watching other people's little videos. And they have kids who are you know cutting out at school, and they've got nanny issues and all
Right.
kinds of all their problems, and it's kind of funny that everybody poops.
That's a great t-shirt. Everybody poops.
Everybody poops. Yeah.
So you let's go back just one second. When you were talking about when you were new and you showed up and now you're in the position that you're in with the years of experience under your belt. If someone came to you and said, "What what kind of person would be good in the stunt work? Do you need to be an extrovert? Do you need to be a bronze medalist? What kind of advice or skill sets do people need to be successful in your career?
Um, well, it's interesting. You can be successful with a wide variety of skill sets. So I think the overall thing that I would say is if you really want to do it, you can do it. You can get in. If I can get in, you can get in. And I that's not facetious in the least. It's a mindset. And if anytime I hear someone go, "Oh, you know what? It might be kind of fun. I might want to try it." Like, don't even bother. Don't bother. You might make it, but you probably won't.
Yeah,
If you do make it, it's kind of a shame because you're probably not going to last. And then you've taken jobs away from people who want it more than any. They give their left kidney to get to where to have an opportunity. So
right.
if you want to get it and you're willing to put the work in and you'll do anything it takes, you can make it. So that's kind of the disclaimer. How to get in, what do you need? Like what's there's not any one kind of recipe for it. I will tell you that I think what really helped me out is that I'm a hard worker. I might not be the best, I might not be the smartest, but no one's going to out hustle me. So,
Yeah, consistency.
um, yeah, yeah, consistency, being smart for me, that was a big part. I mean, in high school, man, my best friend was my computer. I took AP classes. I played trombone in the marching band. I was not a jock. I was not cool. But I spent my time and I worked on, the academic aspect, a lot of it. And I think that was very beneficial to me, because I look at things pretty analytically. I enjoy, I guess, what would be classified as engineering kind of things. So I can I'm very logical. I'm very mechanical. So that kind of fits a lot of stunts
Hmm.
because there's a lot of rigging involved, even car work. It's all you're trying to figure out how can you make this thing do that. Like
Hmm.
you want this car to do that, or you want this guy to fly through the air like this, or you want it to look like you did something. You want it to look like you smashed into this thing, but you didn't. So how can we do it? So for me, a lot of my success, I would attribute to trying to be like thoughtful about things, trying to anticipate things, trying to look ahead. Like, oh, what's that guy gonna need? Oh, that guy hasn't my boss there. He's probably hasn't had a water in a long time, so I'm gonna go grab him a water. And if he doesn't want it, then I'll go put it back. If he does, then I'll have it for him.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. Being a nice guy, I will tell you, there are guys and gals who are very talented who have not been hired, and I've been there and I've overheard these discussions, who have not been hired because people don't want to work with that personality.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of guys who have that and gals who have those personalities do work, and there's sometimes that personality that might be off-putting to one person might be the reason they get a job with someone else. Someone who's cocky and arrogant, the people that I work with aren't typically. So they might not run in my circle, but there is something to be said for asking someone, "Hey, can you do that?" And they go, "Absolutely, yep, no problem." Like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're telling me the truth or not, but I would much rather hire that person than someone who goes, I don't know, maybe,
Yeah.
So whether it's true or false, that can get you in the door. So I will tell you, you can get in. Anyone can get in. It's staying around. What what gives you the staying power is a different question. And in that regard, I think a lot of it is personality,
Yeah.
because you can be super smart, super good, super talented, but a bad personality can that spreads fast. So
Right.
yeah,
What
I don't know if that totally answers it. There's introverts, extroverts, all kinds of different personalities. There's a spot for everyone, but
Sure. What changes have you seen since you've been in the industry for so long now? What are things that you no longer do, or what big industry changes have you seen in your
how has it
career?
evolved?
What's
Yeah,
that?
it's evolved a lot. It's become increasingly specialized. When I started, it was kind of trending that way, and that's my saving grace. If it was not that way, I would. I don't know. I'd like to think I'd still have a career, but I don't know that it'd be nearly as successful. But because it kind of got specialized, and because I I spent 12 years at a stunt driving school, and so you learn, even me, slow learner, you 12 years, you better learn something. So I got into car stuff, and so when I get when I get a call for work, it's, I mean, now it's kind of, kind of wonder if it might be for coordinating, but I just assume it's for driving.
Yeah.
Um, I do get calls for other stuff, but it's unusual. So it's a specialized world. Um,
Is CGI a big part of what you do? I mean, I know in the movies it is,
oh,
but
oh yeah, yeah. I was, I got, I forgot what the original question was. Now I know. How's it changed? So that's one way it's changed. It's become more specialized. Another way it changed. The other big thing is exactly what you just said: CGI, computer graphics, VFX. I mean, when I first started, I don't even know if we had VFX people, and now that's a huge department. They might have been there. There probably were some, but it wasn't very common.
you're old enough to where it was probably claymation, so, you know.
Shut up! It probably was.
Yep.
Jerk. Yes, yes. Um, I'm just kidding.
Yep.
Yeah, CG. Computers are big. In fact, I remember when it started to really come around. People were saying, "Oh man, it's going to put stunts out of business because you just use the actor just stands there against a blue screen and then you make them look like they're falling out of a out of an airplane,
Right.
whatever." But I mean, it's definitely our world, and our scope of work has shifted and changed a bit, but it's not hasn't necessarily. It's probably, maybe it's cut down on our work a little bit, but I don't know. There's probably hasn't. Maybe it has, but at the very least, it hasn't killed it. Definitely hasn't killed our the stunt community. So
I don't think
we
you
still
could
have
ever
trailers.
I don't think you could ever take the human, aspect of it completely out. It may dent it a little bit, but you still have to have
Yeah,
the bodies in the
that's an
seats.
interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting comment, because right now you're dealing with AI, and people are saying things along the lines of, "Look at this. You give it a prompt, and it can,
Yeah.
and whatever program, they can create this scene, this movie scene that's amazing." They can, but the problem is you can't really edit it. It's hard to get exactly what you want.
Yeah.
You can say, "Hey, I want here, make me a movie scene with a man and a woman having an argument, and the woman jumps in a car and does a drift out of the parking lot and down the street," and then you get it. But as a director, you look at it and go, I don't want to see it from that. I want to see this, and I want this. And, it's not. It is going to change our business, but everyone has been kind of freaking out about it, and I don't know. I think it's going to be like what happened with CGI. Everyone thought, oh, it's going to completely revolutionize the industry. It's going to, it's going to render the stunt world unnecessary, and it didn't really happen. And I don't think my prediction is that AI is going to change some things, but I don't think it's gonna upturn the industry like some people are fearful of. I hope I'm right. I
Yeah.
mean, I could be wrong,
No, I
but
agree
there's
with
a lot
you.
of talk.
There's a creative element there that the human brings to whatever they're doing that I just don't see. I mean, maybe in 100 years or something when computers are, in our brains or whatever, but there's a creative aspect that a human brings to the table that I just don't think an electronic device can compete with. And I don't see that
Well,
happening
no, and I
anytime
think that
soon.
we're even seeing that now. If you watched a movie in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s,
Mhm.
and you saw a dude standing on the edge of a balcony, 18 stories up, that's a real dude standing on the edge of a balcony 18 stories up.
Right.
He might be safetied off, he might have a line on him in case he falls,
Mhm.
but that's a real dude there. Now you have got you have anyone doing anything. You have guys on fire jumping out of buildings and landing on, and no one cares anymore because you go, oh, it's CG. Oh, it's CG.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've done stuff that people look at and they go, oh, it's CG. I'm like, no, 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 that's not. We actually did that.
Right.
That is a real car really sliding around and just missing another real car.
Mhm.
So, it's I had thought, and I hope it still happens, and I think it's going to really happen with AI, that movies will be kind of known as, oh, that was all practical. That's all real. There's no CG in that, or in the future, there's no AI. Those are all real people, real actors, real whatever.
Right.
And I think that people are I I don't know, maybe just wishful thinking, and I'm fooling myself, but I think that people would prefer and really care. They'd much rather see a movie with real people than AI. There's something about what I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's human nature is funny, and as we evolve with technology, it's who knows? Who knows? Maybe people will care, won't give two rips, but
No, I think
um,
you've got a valid point, Jeremy. The throwback to someone truly showing their craft as an actor, and I know that you may not have speaking roles, but you are performing for the audience just like someone who stands there and quotes Shakespeare, for example.
yes, I'm an actor. I'm a thespian.
Right. So, but for someone that has that skill to truly transport the audience, and we've all been there where you watch a movie and for a moment you forget you're sitting in a movie theater and you feel like you are there. That
Yeah,
is,
that's the goal, isn't it?
yeah,
That's the
that's the
goal, and I
art.
don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that you get that with animated movies, for
No,
example.
no,
I
you
mean,
don't.
I've cried at some of them, so I mean, they definitely can be touching, but I don't know that you actually feel like you're really in a someone else's world
Right.
with an animated movie, and I don't think that AI is too far removed from that. That you would, if I know it's AI, I mean, I only know my own perspective. I know that I will be checked out if it's. I actually feel a little deceived
Yeah,
when I see something like that,
sure.
especially, even online these days with AI. I'll read something. Go, wait a second, that's not even a real person. No one even wrote that. That picture. That's not even a real. That's not a real person in that picture. I feel like I'm being deceived. I want
Right.
nothing to do with it.
Right.
So, and maybe that's just old man yelling at the clouds here, but I don't know. I just think that even young kids, I think they like it and they might not care as much, but if it's an AI or not. But I don't know, a real person doing something real, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I
a-
think there's something. I think there's a value there.
AI can be entertaining, but it doesn't have the authenticity that a human being brings to it. That's just in my opinion.
Yeah.
From one old
No, I
man to
think you're right. I
another,
guess the real question is. I guess the real question is, does that do people care?
Some people do
And
and some people don't. So,
yeah, I hope that people care enough that I mean, look, here's the deal, man. We're not curing cancer.
right.
We're not ending world hunger. We're making movies, and there's a little place in the world for that. That's kind of nice, but if people end up being completely satisfied with AI created movies, then we all are out of jobs. It's not like we're losing some critical component of the world that we really need. So I say that's the downside of my job is I wish that at the end of the day, I felt like I had done something noble, and not everyone can do that. So I'm okay with that. But man, Tim, I have nothing but respect and admiration for what you do. And I know you're going, oh, it's just a job, but whatever. But that is amazing what you do. The lives that you literally save, the lives that you help, you give community senses the sense of safety and rescue, and knowing that if I get in trouble, I've got Tim Hendricks at my back. He can help me.
Man, my stupid
No one's
allergies.
going, man. If I'm getting chased by a bad guy, I got Jeremy Fry. He can get us away from the cops.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
true.
It's not going to happen. But anyway, so it's not a noble thing. So if movies, people want to watch AI movies and that makes them happy, then that's the whole point of a movie is to get you out of the real world for a little bit.
Yeah,
So
that little escapism is nice every now and again.
yeah, but I don't want some fake computer generated person. I'm not interested in that person trying to,
Yeah,
you know, woo me, or I don't want to turn my soul over to that person.
yeah. Well, speaking of AI being a colossal failure, we've already decided that. What would be your best advice for someone that's new to your industry? Mistakes are going to happen. We're human beings. Failures occur from time to time in our careers and in our lives. How do you, how would you advise someone to deal with failure in your career?
Oh boy. Well, I would advise you to postpone any failure until your career is pretty solid and you are an established
Right.
industry. and you're established in the industry.
Right.
That's about the best advice I can offer. I mean, everyone fails. You just gotta be you gotta be careful because bad news travels fast. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, on a personal level, it's. I don't even want to say it, it's just so cliche. You just gotta try to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. I see mistakes happen a lot, and there's not much more frustrating to me than someone who will not accept responsibility because, oh my gosh, man, I see stuff happen and it's, oh, the car just, it's so dumb. Like, I turned the wheel and the car didn't move. Like, that doesn't happen.
Right.
That does not happen. I hit the brakes and there were no brakes. Well,
Yeah.
here, let me check it. Well, they seem to be fine. Well, they weren't then. Well, no, that's not how it works.
Just own up to it. You're married to it. So,
Well, dude, I had this one show. I had this one job. So, like, I know cars. I know cars very well,
mhm,
and I love cars, and I'm very mechanical, and I like to know why things work. So not only do I know kind of how to get a car to do what it's supposed to do, whether I can do it or not, it's a different case, a different question. But I know how they're supposed to work, and I know. So anyway, we had this guy. He's supposed to do this thing where he basically drives up to this car and stops comes in nice and hot and stops about, I don't know, 6 feet short of the car. He comes in, and when he hits his brakes, I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to T-bone my buddy because he was coming in hotter than he should have. It's fine, whatever. And then he just slammed on the brakes and he locked him up. And as soon as you lock up, well, your front wheels in particular, you're along for the ride.
yeah.
You can lock up the rear wheels and then kind of play the front brakes, and you can really control that. That's fine. But as soon as all four wheels are locked up, you are done. You're done. You're a passenger, and you're just waiting for the car to stop on its own time. And he came in, he locked up all four brakes, all four wheels, and he skidded. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's gonna punt Luke into the next lane. And he stopped about 3 inches short of putting his bumper through Luke's door, and his eyes were huge. And then they yell cut, and I go over. He goes, "Oh yeah, I just, we just the brakes. We gotta, uh, we still have to bed the brakes." Like, dude, bedding brakes has absolutely nothing to do with what just happened.
Right.
You almost smashed that very expensive car into the side of that car, and you screwed up. And you are very lucky that we're not picking pieces of cars off the ground right now. But you know, it was not his. It was the brakes. The brake. We have to bed the brakes. That's why that happened. I'm like,
Yeah.
false, fake news. Not what happened.
Right.
So anyway, so I go over to Luke. I'm like, dude, Luke, how much you want to bet what's the over under on how short he's going to be on this one? And sure enough, on the next one, he was a good 15 feet short.
Yeah.
So
What kind of car was it?
it was very funny. I mean, I don't remember who the guy was. I don't know that he's done a lot of driving, and I guess that was part of it too. Like, you haven't done a lot of driving. I mean, you have an opportunity here to really shine.
Yeah.
And honestly, Tim, if he would have just come to me and said, "Dude, I really screwed that up. I came in way too hot," I would have had nothing but uh, no judgment, no nothing. It happens to all of us. I
Yeah.
would have had respect and admiration that he just owned it, and and just said, "All right, I'm going to make the change. I'll fix that problem. It won't happen again."
Yeah.
So, like, I don't care. I'm the last person who should to pass judgment on someone who screws up in a car, and I won't. But if you're not going to admit it, that's kind of a different story.
Yeah. If you weren't in your current career that you are in right now, what was there another occupation? I mean, you could have been a rock star or something along those lines or a famous actor maybe. But was there another career that you thought, if I could go back, I might give that a shot?
Ooh, what? Well, when I was in college, I thought, and it wasn't like a passion of mine. I just thought, oh, I'll write for a car magazine because I ended up being a journalism major, and the professors were amazing at the school at our school. They
Mhm.
were so good. The journalism department, Dean Nelson, who's still in charge of that department, is off the charts. He's so good.
Hmm.
So anyway, I thought maybe I'd be a writer, but kind of I don't know why. I think maybe I did so much writing in college, it kind of burned me out. Maybe I don't know. I'll tell you though, I do enjoy me some 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock People's Court with Judge Milian.
Gosh.
So,
Oh my
excuse me, Tim.
goodness.
Tim, she is administering justice to those in need on a daily basis. She is righting wrongs, and
Right.
she's making the world a better place. So I'll accept your apology, thank you.
It
And yeah, I think it would have been. I think I would have liked to have been an attorney. Although I will tell you, every attorney I've talked to, with maybe one exception, they don't really seem to like their job.
right.
So well, again, I feel very fortunate to be where I'm at because if I had gone down that path, maybe I'd be one of those unhappy attorneys, in my, $5 million estate driving
Yeah.
a new Bentley, just never wanting to go into work. I don't know. But
S
as it is, I'm driving a 2005 Prius and loving every day. So,
Speaking of cars, you've probably had the opportunity. I know in Baby Driver, you drove is a Subaru WRX STI, I think is what it was. Was it not?
well, kind of. It was
Or was it?
WRX that we put in S. We had a few of them with different configurations, but they were basically WRXs that we put STI drivetrains in.
What types of cars have you driven and what were some of your favorites?
Hmm. I drove some pretty cool ZR1 Corvette ZR1 in the last stand, and I not because of that, but I've ended up with that was a geek out on you real quick. That was a C6 Corvette. It was a ZR1 package,
Mhm.
but so I have since got myself my own C6 Corvette, so Z06, not the ZR1, but those are cool. That was a cool car. Um, um, Most of the movie cars we get are actually pretty lame. They're either not in good shape or it's lipstick on a pig kind of a thing, or they don't work very good. But when you get a car, it doesn't even really matter what kind of car. If it has a good e-brake and it's rear wheel drive, and it's got a good limited slip differential, then you can do a lot with it. And those can be very good cars. So I've been on shows that have had cars that have been set up pretty good. Um, I mean, I got to drive my own drift car on one show. That was kind of nice because my car, I know my car, and it's set up really nice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've driven a lot of cars, a lot of nice cars. Cars when I'll spend more time trying to make sure the seat massager is on my favorite setting than anything else. But
Are they usually
um,
automatics or are they usually manuals?
usually automatics.
Okay.
Usually automatics. There are a few times that you'll want. There are a few times that you would want a manual, and there's been a few shows that I've kind of wanted one, requested one for various reasons, but usually automatics. Personally, I much prefer manuals, except for LA traffic, which sucks.
Oh yeah, man.
But,
Golly.
but yeah, but no, automatics are they're a lot easier because sometimes you're firing. You might have things to do with your other hand, with one hand. You might be firing a gun out the window. You might be
Oh yeah.
setting off some sort of a pyro charge or a cannon, for example. So you typically don't want a stick shift. It's usually not ideal. So
Okay.
usually what we get are automatics. Ones with good e-brakes are nice. Hand e-brakes or foot doesn't matter. But these push button e-brakes also are lame-o.
Yeah. I was thinking
Um,
though, a lot of younger folks do not know how to drive a manual transmission, and so that could
oh,
have.
that's so funny. On on Batman versus Superman, we had I don't know, we had 30, 40 stunt guys, and we had all these stunt cars for this one sequence. And they said, "Hey, we need all those cars move from that side of the street to the other side." So all the stunt guys are, kind of run over. And what's one guy goes, "Hey, Jeremy, hey, could you move this car for me?" I go, "Yeah." He was a young stunt guy. I'm like, "Hey,
Mm.
why?" And I thought maybe I knew, but I was hoping I didn't know, and it turns out I knew. I was
Yeah.
he didn't know how to drive a stick. Like, dude, buddy, you need to learn how to drive a stick.
Right.
We have a good family friend who she um she didn't really know how to, she kind of knew how to drive a stick. She was kind of learning. I said, you need to sell your car. You need to get a little pickup truck to haul a motorcycle, and you need to get a stick shift pickup truck. And she did it. And she did not want to because driving a stick shift in LA, it's hilly a lot often and traffic and da 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 da. But she did it. And to her credit, now she can drive a stick no problem. So
Yeah.
yeah, not everyone can, but you definitely should. You should know how to.
Okay. Well, that's a good piece of advice.
Yes.
So, what you had mentioned somebody early on in our conversation, I forget his name. He was kind of a mentor to you. Um,
Yeah, Scott.
yeah. Is there anybody else in your industry or during your career that's really kind of taken you under their wing and just said, "Hey, I see something in Jeremy. I'm going to kind of guide him and teach him and I'm going to help him be successful."
Yes, yes. Kind of two people. One more. One definitely. So Rick Seaman owned the driving school that I ended up teaching at, and I found out who he was. I called him up and I said, "Hey, can I help you out?" And he said, "Oh, I have this thing coming up this weekend, this charity race I'm putting together." So I went and helped him, and he saw that I could work on cars because I was helping some of the people with their cars. So he said, "Hey, do you want to come to my shop and work on some cars for the show?" I said, "Yes, absolutely." So I went to his shop and worked on some cars for the show. And he said, "Well, you want to come out and work at the stunt driving school?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I don't think he knew this, but I had called him months before to ask him if I could work out there. He's like, "I don't really need anyone, but if you want to take the class, you can." I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, it's this, and it's $3,000." Like, what?
Jeez.
$3,000? I don't think I've had $3,000. I don't think I've made $3,000 cumulatively since I turned 18. So I'm like, well, thanks, but no thanks. And then once he got to know me, he's like, yeah, you come out and work at my school. So then I worked out there. So Rick gave me a chance, for sure. That was a big part of how I got where I'm at.
Yeah.
Was out there working for him. But Darren Prescott, he is now he always has been, or he has been for a long time, but he is a second unit director. He is highly sought after. He is the best there is. When I met him, he was kind of transitioning into coordinating, and we kind of hit it off a little bit. We got to talking about stuff, and he brought me on my very first, not my very first, well, it might have been my first big car job. It was Born Ultimatum. Excuse me, Born Ultimatum, out and shot that in New York. And so, and I've worked for Darren. I worked for Darren off and on for a little bit, and then more and more, and then he had a couple of guys kind of coming and going, who were coordinating for him as he started, kind of assisting him, and then they would kind of coordinate a little bit as he started to second unit direct a bit. And then he gave me a chance on Baby Driver. He said, "Hey, do you want to coordinate and drive?"
Hmm.
And I stupidly said yes because actually doing both's not typically the best idea. Although I will say Darren is has a a very, well respected career as a stunt performer. He is a guy who, if he asks you to do something, you should just do it, because if you don't do it, he'll just do it himself.
Right.
He's very talented. So when I was in the car, he could cover set. Well, I would kind of set stuff up as the coordinator, and then when we go to one, he could kind of cover set while I was going to one and doing the driving stuff. But typically, I don't like doing that.
Right.
But I also didn't know that I didn't like doing that because I hadn't really coordinated much for him. I had done a little bit here and there, but that was a big opportunity. And then ever since then, I haven't done all of his shows. Sometimes I'm not available, and sometimes he's taken to places and they won't pay for someone to come out. Sometimes they can't justify it, but we're actually working together on a show as we speak.
Hmm.
I Before, just a couple hours ago, he and I were in a meeting together about what we're going to be doing next week, which is a big car chase.
Cool. Where do you've traveled some pretty neat places. I know a lot of the stuff is in LA or that general area, but is there a certain are there certain parts of the globe that you travel to on a regular basis to film things, or is it just all over the map?
No, there are definitely some certain spots that they do a lot. They film a lot at. I feel very fortunate that I have not gotten a lot of calls out of the country. When I was single, it would have been amazing. I loved it.
Yeah,
Traveling was great. Now that I'm married and have four wonderful kids, I do not enjoy traveling. My
sure.
wife, God bless her, she loves to travel. Me, yeah, it's fine. I could take it or leave it. And I'm the one who 6 months out of the year is traveling, and she's the one who is forced to stay at home.
Does she get to go with you?
But
Does the family get to join you sometimes on your trips?
rarely, but I'm hoping that that can change. A big part of that is because a lot of times when I wasn't coordinating, when I'm just a performer, I'm brought out for a couple of days, maybe a week.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not really in charge of anything, so bringing, I'm just a grunt.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to bring the family. It's not impossible, and we've done it. But now that I'm coordinating, I'm at places longer, so it makes sense either for them to come out for a long period of time if we can arrange that, or I'll be there for a while, so they could come for a week now or maybe a week later. I have not traveled out of the country as much as or as often as some people. That being said, I've worked in Mexico, Canada, Europe. That actually might be it. A couple places in Europe. Um, I am supposed to be going to Dubai,
Oh,
so
nice.
we'll see if that happens or not. I'm optimistic that it does. I'm it's a good people that are at this stage. I hope it goes. You just never know until it actually happens.
Yeah. Are there
But yeah, but traveling, yes. I'm sorry. I'll in the states. Yes, there's a lot of work. Well, until recently, at least, there's been a lot of work in Atlanta for the last decade or so.
uh
Before that, hot spots were New Mexico. So I've been in Mexico a bunch. Louisiana was hot for a while. New York, I've been in New York a bunch of times. Some kind of random states here and there. Arkansas worked out there.
Yeah.
Um, I've worked in a bunch of different states, but Atlanta's those are like the popular ones. New Mexico, Atlanta, New Orleans, and New York are the. And actually, I've done a handful of shows in Boston.
Hmm.
Uh, 2 years ago, I over the course of about a year and a half, I did 3 shows in Boston, which were I really liked it there. And so my family came out for one of them. They were out there for a long time, I think a month or so. So
Boston's
that was
there's a
really
ton
fun.
of
It's
history
nice
there
having
in
them
that
around.
city.
Yeah, I mean it's not easy living in a hotel room. That one we got kind of an apartment
Yeah.
um for the we might have even been there for, I don't remember how long we were there for. But it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
But yeah, I do like Boston. Boston's great. The people are great. I like the history of it. What I love about Boston is it's when you're in the city, it kind of feels like New York. You can walk a lot of places, a lot of cool stuff to see,
Yeah.
but you can jump in your car and in 8 minutes, I'm in a Trader Joe's parking lot with space. I like space. I
Yeah.
like having parking spaces. When I drive somewhere, it's not a pet peeve by any means, but if I'm going to go somewhere, I don't want to think about parking. I
Right.
like to have big parking lots.
Do you get a lot of
It's
speeding tickets?
nah,
No,
no,
I remember
no.
you play by the rules. That's fine.
I do, which is, and part of the reason is every time I screw around, I get popped.
Yeah.
I remember my buddy, I had a Mustang. When I learned to drift, I had a Mustang. I had a 96 Mustang, which is the lowest power Mustang GT I think they've ever made, maybe. Is one of them at least. It was the 96 GT, but that's what I had. And I had started drifting it, and my buddy said, we were at this park and ride, and my buddy said, Jeremy, I've had the worst day, man. Nothing would make me happier than to see you do a big drift circle in this parking lot. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it. Look, there's a car over there.
Yeah.
It's in the way. I'm not gonna do it. And then I look over and the car starts up and drives away. He goes, see, you have to do it. I thought, all right, I'll do it one time. So I go and I did one, and it was all right. I'm like, hey, I'll do a better one. So then I went, I really lit it up, and raw, I did it. And dude, oh, in the driveway came this highway patrol came tearing in there. and right up to me. He was so mad. He was so mad. He goes, "Didn't you see me?" I go, "Officer, if I had seen you, do you really think I would have done that?" He goes, "I was parked right there." And he pointed over to where he had this car pulled over, and it was literally right next to where I was at.
Oh my
I go,
goodness.
"No, dude, I didn't see." He goes, "And not only did you do it once, you did it twice." Like, "Yeah, I know. The first one wasn't very good, was it?" And he goes, and he took my keys. I thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get arrested," and I got a reckless driving ticket. It was crazy. It was a misdemeanor, and he was not happy.
Yeah.
So yes, Tim, I have gotten tickets.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, one final question that I think everybody is really interested in. You talked about doing stunt doubles earlier. Now I know what you look like, and gosh, you're devilishly handsome, of course. But
Tim,
what are
I'm
the
blushing.
are there are there any famous actors that you have been a stunt double for?
Yes. Wait, you think this is the question? They don't want to know about, my character or my
No,
outlook on life
no, no,
or
no.
my
That's
advice.
plenty of other
No. All right.
podcasts do all that good feel good stuff. We're here for the
Oh
nuts and
my
bolts of
gosh.
it.
All right. All right. Who have I doubled? Well, I'll tell you, I've doubled a bunch of people, and it's the guy I've doubled the most. I know you would guess this if I gave you three chances, but I'll spare you
Richard Simmons.
the effort. Shut up. All right, four chances. No, Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Really? No.
Yeah, I've doubled him. I don't know, four or five times.
Huh.
What do you mean? What do you mean, Tim?
Well, I mean, you were always a fit guy, but you must have put on an awful lot of size since the last time I saw you.
I actually have not put on weight, Tim. That's why I still feel good. No, just in the car. You can hide a lot in a car, but just driving stuff. So
Oh,
I
okay.
did it on Race Witch Mountain. I doubled him on uh, uh, Faster. I think was the movie Faster. I doubled him. Did I? And I doubled. I might. Maybe I didn't double him in Hobbs and Shaw. I doubled Jason Statham for sure. I don't. Maybe I didn't double Dwayne on that one,
Hmm.
but I've doubled him a handful of times. I doubled Keanu Reeves, who is unbelievably awesome.
Yeah.
Just a great guy. I doubled him a handful of times for in a few movies. I mean, dude, I've doubled a lot of people. I just don't remember. Okay, so what we do a lot of second unit stuff, which is I do a lot of second unit stuff on a lot of movies, especially bigger ones. They'll oftentimes have a second unit. So the main unit is what shoots the movie, and a lot of movies, maybe most, just have one unit, one main unit: a director, a DP, the producer. Da, 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 da.
Okay.
Well, some movies will have second units, and typically the second unit is like an action unit. They go out and they shoot action, the fights, the car chases, the whatever. Sometimes you might have a big movie that has a second unit, and they just go out and shoot, insert shots, traffic lights turning from red to green, birds flying out of nests, that
Right.
kind of nonsense. But I'll work on a lot of what I do is on second unit, and on second unit you typically do not have actors. You can, and they sometimes will send actors to you for coverage, but second units are typically just stunt doubles and stunt people, and you're just doing the action stuff. So I've doubled a lot of people, and a lot of times you never even see them. So part of that, you know, causes me to not remember exactly who I've doubled because I haven't always met the actors. But I've been pretty fortunate. Uh, I know that's a very short list I just gave you. I gave you two whole people.
No, that's
Um,
fine.
I'm trying to think, man. But I've also been coordinating a lot lately, so I haven't been doubling as many people. I've doubled a lot of people on TV shows because my friends will have TV shows in town, and those are very conducive to quick, easy 1 or 2 days here and there. And so you're doubling actors that might not be quite as well known. Um,
Right.
but yeah, it's um oh man,
Too many to list.
uh I know I don't keep that. There's other guys who could just rattle off, everyone they've ever doubled in their entire
Sure.
life.
One other question I thought of before I let you
Yeah.
go, because this has been awesome, Jeremy. I really appreciate your time. We talked about pay earlier as far as, like potential earnings and whatnot, but it when you start in the stunt field, are you typically, I mean, is it just like a salaried position or is it paid per job or is it surely it's not hourly because your car is only in the air for like 6 seconds. So what how does that typically progress as far as the way you're paid and the pay scale?
We So you don't have to be. It's not technically a union; it's a guild. But you don't have to be in the union. You don't have to be. It's a Screen Actors Guild. We're a part of the Screen Actors Guild.
Okay.
Same guild that all the actors are. Now you don't have to be in the Screen Actors Guild to do stunts, but all pretty much every movie, every big TV show, they're all SAG signatory. They're all union, and you have to be in the union to work on them.
Okay.
There's some states that are right to work states that you don't have to, but you pretty much have to be in the union. So all the shows I do are SAG shows. So when you're in SAG, there are minimum pays, and you go on a SAG contract. Now there are different contracts for um, different movies based on their budget, but they're pretty much. I don't work. I have, and I'm not opposed. Excuse me at all, and I enjoy working on low budget stuff too. But most of the stuff I do, they fall in just the regular theatrical, big budget kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And so the way it works is you, as a performer, you're either hired on a daily or a weekly. There are some 3-day contracts, but they're not very common. But it's either a daily or a weekly. So you get paid a minimum. Um, I don't. I think right now the daily is 1207, like $1,200 and $1,207. I think is it
Okay.
somewhere along around there is a daily. So that's what you make for a day.
Okay.
That's for 8 hours, not including lunch.
Okay.
Then you get overtime. You get time and a half to 10, and then you get double time after 10. We can get stunt adjustments, which is whatever the coordinator feels like paying you extra for what you did. So if you show up and you're just standing there when a car goes by, you might not get an adjustment. If you're standing there and the car and the you're supposed to jump out of the way of the car as it goes by, you might get, I don't know, $300, $400, 200, 100, who knows.
Right.
It's whatever the guy wants to give you. If you go and you do a big car crash, you might get $8,000 to $12,000 adjustment for that.
Oh, okay.
So then that's that adjustment is then added on to your base rate, and then the two of those together combine to calculate your hourly rate, and then that is what they use to figure out your overtime. So there's other penalties and whatnot that are tacked in there if they don't break you at 6 hours for lunch. There's meal penalties that they have to pay.
Oh,
There's stuff like that. So I will tell you, it's a lot more lucrative than I thought. When I first started, I had no clue that you could even make money doing it. I was still in the mindset of I just want to go do fun jobs.
right.
That's why I was working at a ski shop because I just wanted the job itself wasn't cool, but I wanted to ski, and so
Yeah.
that job it brought a season pass with it, and I had 3 or 4 days off. I had 3 and 4 days off a week alternating, and so that's why I did that job. And so I did stunts because I just thought it'd be a fun job. I had no idea you could actually make a living at it, and certainly had no idea you could actually make a pretty good living at it
Hmm.
doing it. Now that being said, you do make good money when you work, but it's getting the work that's hard. So
Oh,
when you first start off, you pretty much need another job. And the problem is you have to have a job that's super flexible because you might get a call for the next day. You might get a call, are you available for 4 days next week? Or hey, are you available for, I need you for 2 weeks coming up, next month or in 2 months. So you have to have a job that's flexible. And that's a tricky thing when you're getting started is, how are you going to pay your bills?
you're
So
waiting tables and whatnot.
you are. In fact, that's my favorite Halloween costume. You dress up as a waiter, and people say, "Oh, what are you for Halloween?" Like, I'm an actor
Right.
because you're just doing whatever you can to pay the bills. Uber driving or Lyft driving, whatever, taxi driving. That's self-employed kind of stuff. That's pretty good.
Sure.
You can You can, if you have a flexible job. So my for me, the stunt driving school, it didn't pay great. It paid, but I also live very cheaply. I've always been pretty frugal. I lived in one of the worst parts of LA. My rent was $250 a month, and I drove an old beat up Chevy pickup, and I shopped at thrift stores, and I, ate cereal. So
Yeah.
my monthly nut was pretty manageable. So I didn't need a whole lot. But as I started getting into driving, I was going to the track every other week, every 3 weeks, maybe every 2 to 3, 1, 2 or 3 weeks, 1, 2 or 3 times a month. I would be going to the track. And every time I went to the track, it was, I figured it was probably $350 to $450 for gas and tires and the track fee and all that kind of stuff. So, it wasn't cheap to do it. So I really sacrificed to make it happen. But then you start, when you actually work, you actually do make good money. And then the nice thing is we get residuals.
Oh,
So
there you go.
yeah, and they can be really good. They can be really bad. You never know exactly what you're going to get.
Right.
But I'll get checks, throughout the week for all the shows that I've done, and I'll have I don't go to the bank that often, but I'll have a stack of checks, this massive stack of checks. And I kid you not, I've had 2 inches of checks stacked up, and it totaled like $220. So, and then sometimes you're lucky, you'll get like a single check that might be for $2 or $3,000.
I got to be
So,
honest. When you said you had a stack of checks and it could be 200, I thought you were going to say a completely different number there. You
oh
totally threw
no,
me.
no, 220.00.
Yeah, I was expecting a couple more zeros on that if I'm honest, but yeah.
No, I wish. I wish. There are stories of guys that have gotten six-figure residual checks, and not even. It used to be a little more common in the past, but I was talking to someone the other day, and it's the movies that you don't expect, the big movies that just box office smashes.
Right.
You'll make decent. You can make decent residuals on it, but the ones that really kill it are the ones that only had a few people working on it, and maybe they did okay, but they did good and well enough, and there were a few enough SAG people that the profits don't aren't shared, amongst 150 people. They're split up amongst 6 people,
Yeah.
so they get a much bigger piece of that pie.
Huh.
So I haven't had any. I mean, I've had some really nice ones. Don't get me wrong. I've been very fortunate, but they're very very rare. Um, but I've never had any six-figure checks by any means. And
Well,
I have heard of those. I have heard of people who have had those, but so yeah, you can make a good living doing it. I, but most people have another job for a pretty substantial part of their early career
yeah.
before transitioning full time into stunts is a pretty. It's it's a little nerve wracking because there's no job security. You're going in every day. You feel like $1 million, and then the last day of the show, your work finished, and you get home and it's quiet, and you're not going into work, and you
Right.
don't know when your next job is, and all of a sudden you felt like the king of the world, and you realize that you might have to go back to cleaning bathrooms again.
Right. Well, you got to pay your
So,
dues, but eventually you'll be successful like you are, and your big
yeah,
check's
yeah,
coming,
and
Jeremy. I believe in you.
thank you. Well, hey, and I mean this in all sincerity. I thank God for the success He's given me, and I know that I'm not worried about future work because I do believe that He's looking out for me. I'm trying not to be an idiot about it, and I work hard, but I don't chase work down either. I work hard. I try to keep my head down and my feet moving, and and let it happen. And
Yeah.
it's worked for me. I know other people who are more talented than me, and I mean that sincerely, who have worked really, really, who have to fight tooth and nail for every job they get, and it makes me appreciate my work. What I've been given.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people get a little more fortunate than others. Some people have to work harder, but it is definitely hard to get to get going. Very few people are kind of have it given to them, and it
Yeah.
happens. I've met a few guys who they happen to be the perfect look to double this one actor, and they have the exact skill set, and they're very talented, and they went from never having set foot on a set in their whole life to working 3 months straight, and then they just never slow down. And that's kind of rare, but it does happen. More common is, with chumps like me who are just, scraping for nuts. So when I'm hiring people, I do try to find, I don't know. I think this is kind of normal. You try to find someone kind of like yourself because you kind of want, what it was like to be someone who did not have a parent in the business, who moved here with nothing, they have a passion about something, and they work hard at it, and they're willing to do whatever it takes, but they just need someone to give them a chance. And so I do look I do look for people like that who maybe I can be their Darren Prescott, I can be their Scott Rogers.
Right.
Um, hasn't really happened. I do look for that. But it is interesting these days. More and it's not uncommon that the younger generation, they seem, there's a definitely sense of entitlement that seems to be pretty pervasive. There's People don't want to work quite as hard. People aren't as willing to, hit the ground. I mean, dude, I have just wrecked myself because that was the job and I
Yeah.
just had to do it. And now, it was, hey, we need you to do a flat back. So I put my pads on, like, oh, we can see that pad. All right, well, I'll take it off. And you just do it. And now guys like, oh, can we pad the set? Can we have a fake table made with neoprene foam along the edges? Oh my gosh, really? Just how about we just do it? How about you just throw yourself into the table and you just suck it up? Again, old man yelling at the clouds, but
No, you gotta pay your dues. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber or a stuntman. You gotta come in and you don't call the shots when you're new. And you just need to show that you're willing to do what it takes to make it. And then,
yeah, yeah,
you'll have
yeah, it's
success.
true. It's true. I do appreciate people who hang around and they're a big. I don't have too many pet peeves, but one of mine is people on their phones around other people when you should probably shouldn't be on your phone,
Yeah,
such as when you're at dinner with your friends and I look over in a restaurant and I see a table of 4 people and they all have their noses buried in their phones.
right,
I mean, that's their life. They can make their own choices, but I don't want to be at that table. I don't want to be at a table where everyone's on their phone.
right.
And so when I'm on set, I really don't like it when people are on their phones. On my team, and
Yeah,
I try to make it clear, if you're working for me, I don't want to see you on your phone.
yeah.
Phones are important. We have a life outside of work, and sometimes things are important. Just go around the side. I don't want to see them, and I definitely do not want someone missing instructions because you're on your phone. So, but I do see kids on their phone a lot, and I go, man, I even told people, I'm like, hey, there are legends in the business who are 5 feet away from you, but you haven't said a word to them because you've been on your phone.
Right.
So you don't have to talk to them, but you have so much that you could be learning right now from people that you won't have this opportunity. You can get on your phone later for sure. You won't be able to talk to this guy. Or you won't be able to talk to Terry Leonard about you know what it was like to be drug under the stagecoach you know in Indiana Jones. You won't be able to talk to Mickey Giacomazzi about what it's or not Mickey, Mickey Gilbert about what it's like to jump the Fall Guy pickup truck over the sheriff's car. They're right here. There's so much that we can learn, so many great stories that we could get. So I do see that a lot with the younger kids coming up, is not a strong work ethic. They tend to be a little softer,
Mhm.
um, not as interested in like the teamwork part of it. But luckily, there are definitely younger, newer kids, guys and girls who are willing to get in there. And
If you're
those are the
willing
people that I try to find.
if you're younger and you're willing to do that, it's pretty easy to rise up and stand out pretty quickly because you will stand out from your peers pretty obviously. So,
And that, yes, Tim, and that is honestly, when I look back on it, that I would probably actually have success in this business now, just like I did. I have often said I'm glad I'm not coming up in the world now because the talent is so high. I mean, just you look at freestyle motocross. It used to be when you and I were in college. I don't know if you even were aware, but Supercross, the big name was Jeremy McGrath, and he would do
Oh
this
yeah.
thing called the knack knack.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, he would when he would jump the triple on the last lap, he'd take his foot off the peg and swing it over the back of the bike and look backwards, and it was the knack knack, and it was the coolest thing. And then, years and years later, we heard that, oh my gosh, they've actually, I think it was Tommy Tomcat did a backflip on a motorcycle, and it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
And now that stuff is, I mean, a knack knack is a joke, it's not even a trick, and a
Yeah.
backflip is entry level. So
Yeah.
the level of skill has just gone through the roof, and in our business as well. So on one hand, I'm glad I'm not coming up now because I can't compete with that. But on the other hand, it was my work ethic that I think, kind of made me stand apart to a large degree in the fact that I knew cars and I like cars. And those kind of those kind of that's not normal these days. That's not a common trait.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. If you want to get in the business, if you are willing to bust your butt and work hard, put your phone in your pocket, you will get in you will stand out. You will stand out. Whether you get hired or not, I don't know, but people notice you. If you are busting your butt, people notice. And it's sad because you think everyone was, but it's uncommon. And so you will stand out and people want that around. I want
That's
that around.
That's some really good advice to end on, Jeremy. I have been so impressed with everything I've heard today. I've known you, but there were a few things I learned about you in this interview. So I really am grateful for you taking the time to speak with me. And you've shared some awesome advice and some great information for anybody that thinks they want to be the next Jeremy Fry. Pretty soon, we're going to be
Well,
using your name like you've used those legends.
oh, well, that's not true, and but I appreciate it, Tim. I'm honored and flattered that you would consider me. I question your judgment, but
You're not the
I'm
first.
still I've still got a smile on my face, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jeremy. It's good talking with you, and we'll catch up again soon. And that wraps up another episode of the Jobs Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully, you found that interesting. As always, I wait until the end of an interview to ask you to like, subscribe, and share. I feel it's important that I earn that support from you. Thanks again, and we will see you on the next one.